very positive way. You know, tomorrow's Veterans Day, and I'd like to wish and thank all the veterans who have served our country.
WTUG HD2 Northport and W265CG Tuscaloosa. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app. WTUG HD2 Northport and W265CG Tuscaloosa. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Alabama 1st and 10 on the 12. Again, Houston. He's got a hole. He's over. Alabama touchdown.
I'm just wondering if your listeners know how good a football player you were. I can still see you playing that fullback, knocking those players out of the way. And I believe I could have run behind you.
It's time for the Martin Houston Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Good morning. Welcome into the Martin Houston Show on Tide 100.9 on your radio dial. The Martin Houston Show can be found live on Facebook at Martin Houston Live on Facebook and on YouTube, and at Martin Houston 35 on Twitter. It is a beautiful Thursday morning, and we are live and local and ready to get things going. And we will have X's and O's Xavier Houston with us today. So we're glad to have him in on the program. He will not be able to be with us on tomorrow, but we're glad to have him a couple days this week as he joined us earlier in the week as well. Good morning, X. How you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Want to remind you, like we do each and every day, that this is a day that the Lord has made. So let's rejoice and be glad in it. Take some time today to notice someone, love someone, serve someone, be the difference you want to see in the world today. Got a lot going on. X, we hadn't talked about it, and I intentionally hadn't talked about the college football playoffs. Want to break that down with you a little bit. So we have that. Nick Saban talking about not needing external motivation to practice the right way, meaning that most likely he's had to work a little harder to get the guys up and at 'em and going this week since they're playing New Mexico State. And also, of course, we have some hoops you and I hadn't talked about. Man, we can talk about biggest concerns, the O-line. Will this be the opportunity for Alabama to work some new guys into the O-line play and maybe even shake up that O-line a little bit? You know, we've said competition, Xavier, has driven Alabama to be great because you know that the guy behind you will beat you out if you don't do your job. Well, we've been saying all year that we felt like there may be some guys better off behind some of the guys that's starting. We thought Dalcourt was one of those guys that was questionable early in the year, but we saw when Dalcourt went out Saturday that maybe Dalcourt has manned up and stepped up in a big way. So I guess the first question, instead of talking about the O-line in general, let's talk about the specific center position and what you think we're going to see out of that position. And has Dalcourt kind of established himself as the man and us Bama fans want Dalcourt back out there for Saturday moving forward.
I mean, if your option, the other option is Chris Owens, yeah, I think most of us will take Dalcourt back. As we said the other day, it seemed like the pressure follows Owens, and when it's right up the middle, it can affect more things than when it's coming off of the edge. Dalcourt most likely going to miss this week, so you've heard the talk of competition at the center position. And I'm guessing that means Chris Owens at center, Seth McLaughlin, who's a guy that I've heard his name be mentioned at center. He's that true backup listed. But the bigger question for me is if Owens doesn't win the center position and McLaughlin does, or another player, what happens at right tackle? And I've even seen one guy, I think it was Clint Lamb, on Twitter. He said, hey, this is just something crazy, but could you potentially move Ekiyor to center, keep George at tackle, and put J.C. Latham in at right guard and just completely shake up the old line?
That's interesting. Seth McLaughlin is a interesting player. Seth was a tight end coming out of high school. And so I'm surprised we have not seen him use some at that, tight end position that we so covet a blocker at. I'm surprised we've not seen him sometimes move out to that spot, since that was, kind of his not kind of was his position in high school. But then you got the Brockermeyer brothers, and Ekiyor, I think not this year, but last year and the year before, I think he took some reps at center. That's something I hadn't thought about, but I just don't know, man. Ekiyor to me has been if there was no Chris Owens, we'd be on Ekiyor. In terms of,
but would we be on? But are we on Ekiyor, like I mentioned earlier this year, because he's actually playing bad, or is it because he looks worse because of who's around him? We're saying the weak spots on the line have been center and right tackle. When you look last year, that would have been a strong suit on the team with Dickerson and Neal at right tackle. So is Ekiyor struggling because he's not playing up to the level, or is it because he's trying to do too much because of who he's surrounded by?
Well, either or, he's part of the problem, because we didn't have that concern when we saw, even though it wasn't a long time, and I understand I was a backup before, and when Kevin Turner would play 45 plays and I would play 15, and everybody would say, "Oh my God, you should be playing more. You should be the starter, Martin. You're better." And the reality of it is, I couldn't play 60 plays. I couldn't play 45 plays. As a freshman, 15 to 20 plays was where I could play at an extremely high level. And so against Tennessee, we didn't have those concerns about how Latham played against Tennessee. The same concern. Ekiyor seems kind of heavy-footed at times. He doesn't seem like the same player he was last year, whether it's when he's in the box or when we've pulled him out on the edge sometimes and set. And if he's trying to do too much, what's Saban's line that he took from Bill Belichick? Do your job. And as a guy who's played as much play as he has, he should know, do your job first. And I'm not saying he's played, failing football, but he's not been great. And now we saw Dalcourt, maybe he wasn't playing as bad as we thought. Now that we've seen Owens play that center position, and we thought communication. My concern with Dalcourt was never his physicality. To me, Dalcourt has some of that same mentality that Dickerson had, that old school nasty. And I think early in the year he was like trying to learn how to do play football physically, and be the key communicator. Well, you look at where they blitzed, and like I said, I know those LSU blitzes were new, but he seemed to have been doing better and getting better. And it seems like there's a big gap between where he was and I hate every time we get ready to critique something, Xavier, we have to condition it with he didn't prepare as the center all week, and that's true. Owens was not prepared to communicate, and then on top of that, LSU had a bunch of new blitzes, and that could have had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, of course. When you're kind of thrown in there at that position, it can have a big effect on the game.
Yeah, it's too. Yeah. Go ahead.
He didn't. I mean, he didn't look bad at center in the playoffs last year. He seemed like he was able to communicate, but he was also prepping and taking those reps, getting those assignments down. So maybe it was just a lack of preparation on his part, which isn't his fault because that's not what he prepared to do.
Somebody said, I remember the time earlier when Ekior got pancaked earlier this season. Yeah, and that was like ultimately, I don't know if you saw that or not, Xavier. He got pancaked by a DB, like literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a culmination of like, yeah, he's not playing at the physical. And that can happen, and I understand that, but it did look really bad. But when you look at this O-line, what would you do? You're the coach. What would you do with this O-line?
It's Mexico State, and we've talked about multiple times earlier this season. When would be a good time to make a change, shake things up, get some continuity going? I can't put Chris Owens back at right tackle with what I saw from Damian George, because I liked what I saw from Damian George. The only time he looked bad all night was late in the game, and they brought two off of their head.
And he tried to block. He blocked his guy and slowed the other guy down.
Yeah, and but that's the only. That's what I mean. That's the only time he looked bad in the game, from what I could tell. Because once he came in, I really was focusing on watching him play. I don't know if I can sit him back down based off of what I've seen all season from Chris Owens and what I saw from him, Damian, on Saturday once he got the opportunity. So I'm keeping Damian at tackle. Chris has to win the starting center job before Dalcourt comes back. If he cannot beat out McLaughlin, I'm putting McLaughlin in, and I'm keeping George at right tackle. And then once Dalcourt comes back, if they believe that he is the guy and he's the better option there, you put him back in, or you potentially leave McLaughlin in, just depending on how he plays and how long Dalcourt is out officially.
Yeah, because technically you're looking at an O-line that is clearly, if you had to say what's the weakest link or what would prevent Alabama from winning a national title this year, your first option would be O-line play. Inconsistent O-line play, mostly right tackle O-line play. But what's been interesting is how many times we're running behind the right side of the offensive line in key third down, short yardage situations. I'm like, what are we doing? How do you not run behind? What guy? Listen, in O-line play, as it's sort of like at fullback, Xavier, I did not want my name mentioned, because if my name wasn't mentioned, it was because Derek Lassick, Sherman Williams, and Chris Anderson and Saran Stacy and all, they were getting yards. Okay, and when I did, or Jay wasn't getting sacked. The only time they would mention my name is when I missed a block or they got hit in the backfield or something like that. Think about this. We never say Cohen, and we hardly ever say Neal. I run behind them like Coach Stallings used to do. I run behind them until they stopped it, and then I run it one more time just in case they got lucky. So, but anyway, hey, coming back on the other side, we'll talk a little bit more. I do want to talk to you about the college football playoffs. and we'll say the basketball conversation just a few minutes at the end of this program. But also Dallas Turner, Drew Sanders. What's going to happen there with what happened with the ball game based on the play and new Heisman talk circulating around the campus? Is this the year that it happens again? Alabama broke a long streak last year with wide receiver Devontae Smith winning the Heisman. Will another long streak come to an end? We'll talk about that and more right here on the Martin Houston Show.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, no wrecks and traffic pretty light as we crank up our Thursday morning commute. Just drive carefully, of course, and if you do see conditions, give us a call, 205-886-8886. Townsend Nissan is taking care of business with an amazing selection, low finance rates, and extra rebates. Go see them. I'm Captain Ray.
Need to hire great candidates? You need Indeed, the all-in-one platform for interviewing, screening, and hiring high-quality people. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
Hey, Bama fans, before you head to the stadium to watch the Tide roll, stop by JD's Market and Spirits for all your tailgating needs for Bama football games. Located only 3 blocks from the stadium, JD's offers over 500 liquor items, 400 wine items, and a huge selection of craft, domestic, and imported beers. JD's also has hot dogs, snacks, ice, and game day supplies. Everything you need for tailgating. JD's Market and Spirits, 400 yards from Bryant-Denny Stadium on the west side. Call 722-2113.
Flu vaccines to help protect you this season, the flu and COVID-19. And now you can get both shots at the same visit. Learn more at cdc.gov/vaccines.
In a collision, easy decision. One name, one firm, one call. Mesrano.
I made that one call to Mesrano after being hit by an 18-wheeler. He got me $875,000.
I made that one call to Mesrano after being T-boned on McFarland. He got me $125,000.
I made that one call to Mesrano after my fender bender. He got me $50,000.
One call, one firm, Mesrano.
No representations waiting the quantity of legal services to be performed is greater than quantity of legal services performed by other lawyers.
We know it's lonely at the top, but we don't mind.
National championship number 18. 13 in all. Absolute perfection.
Roll Tide. Join us Saturday as the Crimson Tide welcome the New Mexico State Aggies to Bryant-Denny Stadium. Our coverage begins at 8 a.m. on your home for Bama football.
This is Eli Gold, and you're listening to your home for Alabama football, Tide 100.9, and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Tide 100.9, Tuscaloosa weather.
A cloudy sky today with occasional showers, maybe a thunderstorm in spots, the high 71. For tonight, showers ending this evening, clearing and cooler, the low at 45. And tomorrow, a good supply of sunshine with a high at 67 degrees. I'm James Spann of the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 53 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Scott Smith and Sophomart Design, doing business for 17 plus years, specializing in graphic design services, commercial printing, promotional products, advertising specialties, and so much more. Basically, any and everything you would need to advertise, promote, and grow your business. Through strong partnerships, strong customer service, and creative ideas, they'll help you market and grow your business. Give Scott a call at 205-292-4680 or email scottis@comcast.net and visit them online at sophmartdesign.com.
Interact with the Martin Houston Show by calling us at 205-342-9904 or tuning into the Martin Houston Show on Facebook.
Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show. We got Xavier Houston of X's and O's Sports podcast on with us. X, tell our listeners where they can find you, sir.
Yes, sir. You can find me at X and O Sports along all platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. My Facebook is the best probably right now. I update normally daily, multiple times a day, for just any interaction, anything going on with Alabama, from football, basketball, baseball, and all other sports.
All right, that's X's and O's, Xavier Houston. I did set up a tease while we were going to break, but two things came in. Jim Stockdale sent me a text this morning asking two great questions. Joe, I'd like to even hear your response on at least one of these. How does O'Brien not call any screen passes when LSU blitzes all night? Think about that for a second. Right. I mean, X, you can respond. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, we didn't. I mean, nothing else to say. They were coming hard all night, and we didn't do a single thing to make them slow down, check up, anything. We didn't run screens to the running backs, wide receivers, a tight end screen. Nothing.
And thus why teams prepare and blitz us the way they do. Because undoubtedly we don't have it in our system. I mean, undoubtedly we just don't have they've seen enough film and enough tendency to know that we're not going to blitz. I mean, you know, there's two easy ways, not easy ways, two effective ways to get guys out of blitzes, get defense out of blitzes. That's screen passes, and there's so many different screen passes you can run today, as well as the draws. You can run draws, where you make it look like it's going to be a pass, and you do a late handoff. And based on where they're blitzing from and the numbers are coming from, you can also do some read option types of things to, like if they're blitzing the outside guy, then you can leave that guy unblocked and read the first guy with the running back, and then get out on the edge and read the second guy. You know, we had a couple plays this year where we played teams, Xavier, where we actually blocked the end man on the line of scrimmage and read the linebacker. So instead of sending our tackle up to get the linebacker, we took the defensive end that we normally would read and said block him, and then we read the linebacker. Yeah.
Field block.
Yeah. And then we would read the backer. So Joe, any thoughts on that? I don't understand it. I mean, we just don't. O'Brien or whoever just doesn't seem to have, a whole lot of screen or draw in their package.
I wonder if it's trying to limit the usage of Brian Robinson because he's been used so much as the primary running back. But
Yeah.
You're right. You got to get you have to be more creative in finding ways to beat the pressures. Obviously, the pressures are still going to come, and you still have to run your offense. But if you can't get your offensive line to communicate and pick up the right guys, then there's got to be other things that you do as the offensive coordinator to alleviate the pressure.
Yeah, and that's what my concern is. We just keep doing the same thing. Jed Cowan said, go ahead.
But you look at, I'm sorry, I don't see a huge drop off between Jace and Roydell if there's any. When Roydell's gotten the opportunity since when Brian was hurt in Minnesota Michigan, and you look at what he's done in spot duty, he's been just as impressive, if not more impressive than Jace was.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with.
Not wear down B-Rob, play Roydell more.
Undoubtedly, they don't trust him as much in the passing game, though, and that we have not seen that. We've seen him in the run game, but we've not seen Roydell used hardly at all in the passing game. So,
and that's what's confusing. He had the touchdown. He called a touchdown against Texas A&M. He had the night. If he don't trip, he scores on the one against LSU. I mean, the kid makes plays in space. So, but
yeah, and it's weird. I can tell you, being a coach, it's weird how some coaches and some mindsets work, and certain things you see in certain players. Just from a personal standpoint, we had a young man that our trust was growing in him, and we were going to need to use him. And the first time we used him, he messed up the play, and that trust was immediately eroded. And so it's hard to say why. It doesn't make sense. what you're asking. Another question was, why don't we blitz more? It seemed like when we blitzed the other night, we were very effective, but we don't do it very much. And it may be because our DBs get confused.
Yeah, I mean, we have blitzed more recently. The delayed, and it's almost like they're telling Christian and Henry, hey, if the back's not going out, when you see he's not going out, go. And it's been effective. I mean, we did it a little bit against Mississippi State, did it some against Tennessee, and we did it some against LSU. And it's been effective over these last 3 games. We just don't do it all the time.
Yeah, and that's really more of it's a play call, but it's really not a blitz package per se. It's you have coverage on the back, and if the back doesn't go out, then you come, and so sometimes the back thinks that you're not coming, so he'll go help a lineman, then you come free. My thing is, I think part of our concern with our blitz packages, of course, has to do with concerns over whether or not our DBs are going to stay in coverage, because a lot of times when you go, you're going to go, man to man. If you go blitz, you're going to have a zero coverage, no safety help or anything. A lot of times in blitzes, so it makes it more difficult unless you do some type of zone man and drop a lineman back, and we don't seem to do that either. Another question. Jed Cowan said, "How awesome would it be if Anderson won the Heisman?" Other than and Joe, you're kind of my historian that keeps me straight and all of that. Other than Woodson, has a defensive player won the Heisman?
Not since Charles Woodson.
Right.
There's been a couple, but not since Charles Woodson.
Okay, so I know Charles Woodson, and he wasn't strictly a defensive player.
There's never been a
strictly
defensive only side of the ball player to win it.
Right, and he was the last mainly defensive player to win it. And so if they really are giving this let me tell you how lopsided this award has been, because Cassandra was watching and we were talking about it, and it came on television, and she was like, I didn't even know a defensive player could win it. So that tells you that it's not about the best player in college football. Is there anyone at this point, with no one stepping up right now, if you had to give the Heisman between just Alabama, you would not give the Heisman to Bryce Young over Will Anderson?
No, I wouldn't.
Right? So is this the potential, if he keeps projecting forward, is Will Anderson going to get into that conversation, Xavier and Joe? And do you think this is the year potentially where he has the legit shot to be the first pure defensive player to bring that trophy home if he keeps going?
I mean, you like you said, you look at the top guys. Kenneth Walker took a hit losing this past week. Kenny Pickett took a hit a couple weeks ago. Stroud hasn't played great. Bryce puts up good numbers, but it's ugly when he does it. It's a weird thing, especially when Alabama struggles the way that they did against LSU. But then you flip it to the other side, and you're talking about a guy that over the last 3 games has 7 sacks, over 10 tackles for a loss. He's just been absolutely dominant. So if he continues that, I mean, there's 3 more regular season games. Bama wins all those, and then the SEC championship game. You're talking about a guy that could have 6, 7 more sacks total. How many more tackles for a loss, and just be an overall defensive nightmare.
Joe, you think he has any chance?
I definitely think he has a chance. I think at this point he's going to be invited to New York. I'm probably going to go counter to you guys. I would give it to Bryce Young right now if it was up to me. Think about where this Alabama team, and you can say the same thing for Will Anderson.
Yeah.
But think about where this Alabama team would be without Bryce Young. You look at the performance of the offensive line on Saturday night, where Bryce is basically out there running for his life, and then you extrapolate that throughout the course of the whole season. I think that Bryce Young has been vital to Alabama's successes. And I think that without him, Alabama might be a 3 or a 4-loss team. But you could probably say the same thing for Will Anderson defensively. He's been extremely impressive. I think he's at least worth an invitation to New York.
Yeah, I think we'll end up with much like last year that we have two of the top three guys. I think we'll end up in the same boat. And you're right. Bryce Young has been unbelievable, but I think it's easier for a guy on a team like this to be effective in the Bryce Young role than it is the Will Anderson role. That would be the only reason I would probably give the ticker to Will Anderson at this point, but it'd be a close heat. Before last week, I was watching Will. I wouldn't have said. I'd have been like you, Joe. Bryce has done it since day one, since he stepped on. Will, you can see that he's getting healthy again. And that's the part that I'm like, woo, what would this guy have done had he not had those, 3 games where I know he had that big brace and he seemed limited. But I think it's his leadership, his leadership, his execution. And I think that's the part that probably tilts it over, because I think he is actually the bona fide leader of this particular team. So we'll watch it and see, but it'll be cool. And CJ Watson, and I had not thought about this, but Jed Cohen, it would fit the Bama Heisman mold of the only non-QB players to win the Heisman since the 90s, and it's all been Bama players. So I didn't realize that, if that's a true statement.
Reggie Bush had his Heisman taken away.
Yeah.
So for Heismans that count, there are only 3 players that haven't been quarterback since the since Ron Dane, I think, was the last running back. Bart.
Xavier, I was your age when Ron Dane won. Yeah. I was actually younger than you. I was actually younger than you when Ron Dane won it. So that statement still qualifies.
Well, think about this. Simeon is now older than I was when Mark Ingram won it.
Yeah, so there we go, man. That's kind of crazy. But anyway, all right. Hey, coming back on the other side, we're going to catch up with recruiting guru Hank South, 247 Sports, talking Bama recruiting on the hardwood and on the gridiron right here on the Martin Houston Show.
Tide 100.9 traffic. From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, no wrecks and traffic pretty light as we crack up our Thursday morning commute. Just drive carefully, of course, and if you do see conditions, give us a call, 205-886-8886. Townsend Nissan is taking care of business with an amazing selection, low finance rates, and extra rebates. Go see them. I'm Captain Ray.
Hello, this is Martin Houston with the Martin Houston Show, and I want to tell you about one of our great sponsors, Overflow Express Wash. Their mission is to provide great customer service with a showroom clean car and an exceptional customer service experience. They have the basic car wash that starts at $7, but you need to check out the premium wash packages, which start as low as $12 and go up to $20. They also have a membership wash club that you can get for starting at $23.99, going up to $39.99. In other words, just double the regular premium package, drop a penny, and you can be one of the great members of Overflow Express Wash. My family and I keep our cars looking good inside and out by using Overflow Express Wash. They're located on Skyland Boulevard, right next door to Alabama 1, or you can find them online at overflowexpresswash.com. Andy Phillips and his team look forward to making you a part of their team.
Fall is a great time to get your home improvement projects done with the help of Banks & Company Hardware in Utah. They have a great selection of hardware, lumber, sheetrock, and home repair products for yard work. They carry Husqvarna blowers, weed eaters, and chainsaws. If you're a hunter, Banks & Company Hardware has deer corn, moultrie feeders, deer scents, hunting clothes, jackets, boots, orange vests, and hats. Stop by and see Barton Elliott and his staff today at Banks & Company Hardware, open Monday through Saturday in downtown Utah.
Don't miss a play at the Sportsbook at Pearl River Resort. Your front row seat to all the action. Place bets on all professional and most college sports at the counter, kiosk, or on your phone. Then catch the game on one of our 20 big screens from the comfort of the newly remodeled Timeout Lounge. Plus, the PRR Sports app gives you access to live, in-play sports betting. Sportsbook at Pearl River Resort. Be more than a fan. Be a player. Must be 21.
Nick Saban calls it the process. John Maxwell said that everything rises and falls on it. And Coach Wooden said it's what you learn after you think you know it all that makes the difference. What am I talking about? Leadership and personal development. Is your organization, your school, your church, your family, are they receiving the proper level of leadership development and personal development? If not, the Empowerment Center for Leadership and Mentoring can help you with that. We have our pep talks, which is a 1 to 1.5 hour lunch and learn, which we can customize to meet your needs, or we have some topics that we present that we know can help your organization. And if you're looking for one-on-one mentoring and coaching, we can also assist you with that. Visit peptalks35.com. That's peptalks35.com, or send an email to martin@martinhouston.org. That's the Empowerment Center for Leadership and Mentoring.
Welcome back to the Martin Houston Show, the sound of Bama sports. Your show, your team, on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Martin, I'm on your heart right now.
Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show, man. Thanks to the great sponsors like Alabama One. Alabama1.org is where you can find out more about them. Also, Alabama1Insurance.com. Go check them out as well. And whether you're looking for a home loan, a mortgage loan, auto, ATV, tractor, signature loan, personal loan. Alabama One has the services that can help you, the products that can help you with that need. Credit cards, great financial institution, and also so many great vertical services, including insurance, wealth advisory, as well. So go check them out, and even technology support. So telling you, it's a full service financial institute. That's Alabama1.org. Alabama one together. All right, let's bring in Hank South, 247 Sports, Bama Online Recruiting. Good morning, Hank. How you doing, sir?
Hey, good morning, Martin. I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Well, it's Nate Oates. He's sitting at number 3 through the early signing period. Is he done? And just how impressive is this class that he just inked in the early signing period?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's gonna, try to add more. They put out a recent offer in the 2022 class earlier this week with all the guys they had on board. Obviously you got the spring signing period, and we've seen Bama have a lot of success there, whether it be getting guys late or going through the transfer portal. So I wouldn't totally write it off, but in terms of the class they just signed on Wednesday, all 5 guys that they were able to get to make it official on Wednesday, the first day of the early signing period. One of the best ever, in Alabama history, I'd say. Number 3 overall in the recruiting rankings, and it's been a really rapid rise for them in the last 2 weeks. That they were sitting outside, I think, the top 50 prior to the month of November. And then come November 1st, we saw Brandon Miller commit. We saw Noah Clowney commit. Then we saw Nick Pringle commit. And then, of course, earlier this week, Rylan Griffin, the 4-star shooting guard, commit. So that vaulted them all the way up to number 3 in the rankings. You have 2 5-stars in Miller and Jaden Bradley. And then some really big time prospects. Nick Pringle, he's the number 1 junior college power forward in the country, number 2 junior college prospect overall. So, big time talent there. Then the Clowney and Griffin are both, top 100 prospects as well. So overall, just a loaded class. It's pretty much an entire team if you're looking at positions. You know, you
Yeah.
got your guards, you got your big men. So overall, like they could put this class on the floor starting lineup. So I think that's what they want to do, and it's a big time class for sure.
Yeah, it's really crazy to think that you could literally fast forward in a dream world, and 3 years down the road, this could be your starting five. All having been together for 3 years. So pretty impressive. I got a couple other questions I want to follow up at Xavier as well, but we got Pat who's been holding for you, Hank. So let's see what Pat has to say. Pat, you're in with the Martin Houston Show. What's on your mind, sir?
Good morning, fellas. Hank, this morning I'd like to talk about a center. It seems like offensive center might be one of our biggest needs. Have you heard anything about the Brockermeyer boy that we got last year? How is he developing?
I think that they got in early this past semester, or the spring semester, and James Brockermeyer was coming off a pretty nasty ankle injury that he suffered in November of about a year ago, I guess, right now, and he was able to recover from it pretty quick, but it obviously kind of set him back just a little bit in terms of getting ready to play. But I don't think he's in a position to where he could go out there and play this weekend. He probably could if he needed to, but I don't think he's ready by any means at this point in time. I think it would be more of a Chris Owens backup situation at the center position. So I think he'll get there eventually, but I still think he's a little ways away from being able to contribute.
Next question. A guy out of Wisconsin by the name of Hensman. It's looking like Wisconsin for him, but I see that he has Alabama on his wish list. What about this young man? Supposed to be the number one center in the country according to some services.
Yeah, I checked in with him actually recently because he took an unofficial visit to Bama in the summer. He was looking at getting back on an official, but as of I think I talked to him like a week or two ago, he said he hasn't really been talking to the staff. He wasn't going to take an official visit. So at least at this point, it doesn't look like anything's happening. But never say never. Bama can always circle back on pretty much anyone. So it wouldn't hurt to keep an eye on him just to be safe.
And one last question. Are we going to be able to pick up a five-star cornerback or two, Damani Jackson, and then the young man out of Texas that we really, really need to work on this defensive backfield? What do you think?
Yeah, I think Bama has a really good shot at landing out of that, kind of trio of cornerbacks they're still after, the big-time cornerbacks they're still after, whether it be Jackson, Harris, Denver Harris, or Earl Little. I think they have a pretty good chance of landing 2 or 3 of those guys. And, I'm starting to feel better and better about the chances on Damani Jackson after his official visit this past weekend. Obviously committed to USC, but, he's saying all the right things in terms of Alabama. So, we'll see if he decides to make a change. And Harris, he's been really quiet. There's been kind of, some questions about, is Bama still the leader, still the favorite for him? And, it does seem like they're still trending for him, but he has taken a while to, make an announcement or even get back on campus. So, I'd still pick Bama there, but, we'll see. But then Earl Little, I think he's as close. I never say anyone's a lock, but I think he's as close to a lock as you can get in terms of, where he's going to end up. And he was back on campus last weekend too. So they're going to get some pretty good additions at that position in this class, in my opinion.
Sounds right, doesn't it, Mr. Houston?
It sounds like a pretty good flow, especially since we're already sitting at the top of the heap. So speaking with Hank South, thanks, Pat. Speaking with Hank South, 247 Sports, Bama Online Recruiting. Xavier got a question for you, Hank.
Yeah, how you doing this morning, Hank?
I just lost Hank. Let me get him back.
Okay, that's not a problem. It's kind of crazy to think. Xavier, we're sitting here in Alabama. I was going to ask Hank about that. Alabama catapulted to the number 1 overall class with the recent commitment of Isaiah Hastings, another Canadian, football player, D lineman, 6'4", 290. And he's playing in Clearwater, Florida, at Clearwater Academy in Florida. But it's pretty amazing, like I said, what Nate Oates is doing in the middle of football season in Alabama, at the mythical number one in the recruiting ranking, and everyone is just as interested to talk about this basketball class.
Yeah, it's been amazing to see what he's been able to do. And we thought we were getting this with Anthony Grant. We thought we were getting it with Avery Johnson. But, we have been trending in the right direction, and it's amazing to see what Nate Oates has been able to do in such a short time. It's very reminiscent to how Nick Saban came in and started building the program all those years ago.
Yeah, and Hank, welcome back. I will say that I think that not Anthony Grant, but Avery helped to break some barriers, even though he never had the on the court success. But I think he was getting into some of those conversations. And then once you got the product that these young kids like to play, spread it out, shoot it up, play defense, spread it out, shoot it up, and rinse and repeat. We started getting these guys. But go ahead with your question for Hank South. Welcome back, Hank.
Hey, Hank. Talking about Earl Little, we saw him at Alabama this weekend, and as you said, you never want to call anybody a lot, but he's as close as it gets for you. But his teammate, Marvin Jones Jr., he seemed to have a really good time this weekend. Do you think that if we get one, we get the other? Because they seem to me like they might be a package deal for some schools.
Yeah, I think that's a very realistic possibility. I was kind of waiting to see how this visit for Marvin Jones Jr. went this weekend. Obviously, most official visits never go poorly. Most kids are always loving it, but it seems like Bama really took a step forward for Marvin Jones Jr. this weekend. He was obviously on campus with Earl Little. They spent the entire weekend. They did the whole thing where go to Saban's house on Sunday morning, do all that fun stuff, spend time with the coaching staff, and I think Bama is very much in this one. He's kind of an interesting recruit. He obviously Bama has a lot of success in South Florida, but his dad played at Florida State, his mom ran track at Miami, so he's got the legacy of recruit going for him. Obviously, both those programs are pretty down right now. So is he looking to go elsewhere? Is he going to be a package deal with Earl Little? We'll see. But I think Bama really helped himself. I think we weren't really talking about him much throughout the summer and early fall. As we're getting closer to this early signing period, I think he's really a guy to watch at that edge position, especially if you consider guys like Anai White, who might look like he's trending towards Texas A&M or going elsewhere, which I don't think that's a done deal or anything. But there are other edge rusher targets, other jack linebacker targets that Bama's kind of more on the outside for at this point in time. Then you look at a guy like Marvin Jones, maybe that's the reason why. So he's going to be one we're tracking closely.
That's Hank South, 247 Sports, Bama Online Recruiting. Hank, when you stepped away for a moment, we were talking about this Alabama team jumping to number one. Is with this recent commitment with Isaiah Hastings. What is Alabama getting in this young man, and who do you see any more commitments dropping in the next week or so?
Yeah, I think this guy was a steal on the defensive line. He was a guy that had like 2 low-level offers this past summer. He came down to the States to play at this Clearwater Academy International down from Canada. He went to a satellite camp and got like 5 offers in one day. He started blowing up, and then in the last 6 to 8 weeks, that's when the big schools started calling the Alabama, Georgia, the Oregon, and people just absolutely loved him. And Bama was aware of him back in Canada. Obviously, they wanted to see him a little bit more in his senior season playing in Florida. And Freddie Roach went out to see him, I think in late mid-September. and obviously he played well and they liked him, they offered him, and the rest is history. He committed, but 6'4", 290, a guy that can really play any position along the defensive line. He's really athletic. He moves really well. I know Andrew Ivins, who scouted him a few times in person, says he carries his weight really well. You could look at him and think he was like 250 pounds, but he's about 290. So, I think he's a guy that's really going to develop well. I get Christian Barmore kind of vibes, in terms of similar situations where they didn't really blow up until their fall of their senior season, and that's when teams really started going after them. So I think he's a big pickup, especially at a position of need. Bama needs to add more defensive linemen, and he's certainly a good one to get in Isaiah Hastings.
All right. Speaking of Hank South, 247 Sports, Bama Online Recruiter. Hank, I got a flip back over to basketball real quick. Nate Oates appears to be, someone said Alabama is now officially one and done U. Do you think that, are guys committing as if they believe that as well? Because you look at some of the guys we're getting on top of the guys we have, on top of the guys who are saying they're interested. It's almost like they expect these guys to be kind of one and done. Are you hearing any of that type of conversation out there right now?
I think that any of these top level recruits that are in that conversation of that, that's their ultimate goal. And you look at Bama, their playing style. I was talking to who was it? I think it was Nick Pringle, and he was saying that Bama's playing style is as close to the NBA as you can get. Then you look at their track record in the last few years. You have Primo going one and done. And Primo, I think that surprised a lot of people that he ended up entering the draft and then going in the first round. You see that kind of year. He had a good year, but you couple that with a big time year from one of these guys. You have Tyra Lewis. You have these guys getting drafted, Herb Jones, and I think guys take notice of that. So kids really are seeming to pick up on what they're putting out there, and obviously Bama goes out on Tuesday night and plays really well to kind of back it up. But I think the staff does such a good job of recruiting these big top level guys that are one and done potential, and then recruiting these guys that might need a few years of development. You get Keon Ellis out of the junior college level, and now he's playing like he's going to be a first round pick too after a couple of years in the system. So I think they're just doing overall a really good job.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than this. Kind of crazy to think that you and I and Xavier just spent time talking about Bama basketball and recruiting when Alabama is sitting as the number one class in football. Yet we're talking about basketball. Number 3 class for the Crimson Tide has to be the high. I don't know how they do the points in basketball. Has to be the highest point total ever. Not only 1 5-star, but 2 in the same class. And a couple of these guys may end up being 5-star before they're finished, and I guess Pringle is about as close as you can get to a 5-star coming out of junior college rank. So really impressive. Any closing thoughts, and tell our listeners where they can find you, Hank?
It's coming up on almost a month away from the early signing period. 2 more home games obviously won't be at the same level as we saw with LSU and Tennessee, but probably some notable visits coming up, and then into a busy little stretch in December. So good time to join. BamaOnline.com, and then my Twitter handle is @HankSouth247.
All right, @HankSouth247. Sports best @HankSouth247. Best handle on Twitter in the recruiting world. Thanks, Hank. We'll catch up with you next week.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, hey, thanks so much for being a part of the program. Xavier, we got a couple minutes. We'll go ahead and do the 2-minute warning right here. Alabama One Insurance 2-minute warning. We briefly mentioned Will Anderson for Heisman. I'll talk probably more about this tomorrow. What are your thoughts on Drew Sanders, Dallas Turner, and when Drew comes back full speed, will his injury have made this defense a little bit better with the emergence of Dallas Turner seeming like he's getting a better feel for the game?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. It definitely helps when you can develop it, even though it came at a little bit of a hit. So I think Drew getting hurt, bad for the team, but good for the long run. bad for the team in the moment, good for the long run.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. What's your biggest concern with this Alabama team outside of O-line?
Probably the secondary at times. They can't get. There's a little bit of confusion. They get lost at times. You look at both the touchdowns that LSU had Saturday. It was miscommunications and not playing the right read. But other than that, nothing really.
Yeah, sometimes Malachi Moore, I think he's still hurt. I mean, he doesn't seem like the same kid that he was last year. He seems to be out of position and sometimes of a liability. A quick question, and I'll talk about more about it, and we'll talk about it next week as we prepare for Arkansas. But is this defense playing at a championship level? Can we win it with the defense that we have that's been out there the last few weeks?
I've been extremely impressed with the defense the last couple of weeks. I know people were like, "Oh, Tennessee threw for a lot of yards," but that wasn't Tennessee's strongest suit coming in that game. We shut down the run. You look at what we did against LSU; they had less than 100 yards of total offense in the first half. They really got their true yards on 2 drives, a fake punt, and a big run on the 4th down. Other than that, Alabama was able to control the line of scrimmage. They were able to control the way the game went, and if they play like that the rest of the way, it should be okay.
All right, that's X's and O's, Xavier Houston. You can find him on all the great podcast, social media platforms, podcasting platforms, and follow X's and O's Sports on Facebook. Join his group there. Thanks, X, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm Martin Houston. That's Xavier Houston. Thanks, Joe Gaither, for pressing all the right buttons. Thanks to all the callers, listeners, viewers, and chatters for being a part of the show. Go ahead, quick.
Veterans Day to all my happy Veterans Day to all my fellow vets out there. Thank you for your service and much love.
All right, and as he closes it out, thank you to the vets who have served us well. Thank a vet today. Thank a vet every opportunity you get. Roll Tide. And remember this, trust in the Lord always. Lean not on your own understanding. Always acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. And once again, happy Veterans Day, and thank you for making this the greatest nation in the world because of your service and sacrifice.
Thank you for listening to the Martin Houston Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Thanks, Joe. Have a good one, man.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
From the Townsend Nissan